Hey guys, welcome back to Vinceville Custom. So today what we're going to do is a build-up video of a Moducase DF130, which is this large one that's in the back. The one that's on top of it that's attached to it is a DF60, and this right here is a Max, I think, 140. Now, my display is a little bit different only because of my ceiling. I can't fit the Maxes, stack them up in my house because I have a very low ceiling. But I'm setting it up this way, and I'll kind of go over my whole collection and my Moducase display once everything is said and done. But for this video, we're going to focus on putting the DF130 together. So I'm going to try to give as much information as possible, kind of walk you guys through how I build it up. I followed the Moducase video, and I followed some directions. I sort of kind of do it a little bit opposite, and I think it works better. It's really not that hard. I feel that if you're the type of person that could go to IKEA and buy an IKEA bookshelf or something, or you go to like Walmart, Target and buy those put together things, if you're the type of person that could look at the directions and start putting it together without even reading them, just by looking at the pictures, you could put a Moducase together. If you're the type of person, I think, where, you know, you have a little bit of trouble and you need a little bit more information, that's what I'm going to try to do in this video, just to give you guys a little bit more input on how to put this stuff together and how I do it. But they're really not that hard. Once you get through one and you start getting a feel for it, it pretty much goes on to all the others. Now, I do have a corner case coming that's going to be on the other side of my room. I'll do another video on that when the corner case comes and putting all that together. For right now, we're just going to do the basic 130, just put it together, explain it, show you guys how to add the screws, how to do the framing, add the plexiglass and all that stuff. I think the hardest part of the whole entire build-up is actually peeling the plastic off the plexiglass, at least for me. Adding the screws, adding the frames, tightening everything, putting it together isn't really that hard. It's sitting there pulling the that paper off the plexiglass, because what happened is when I put these up last week, my fingernails actually all just kind of like just chipped and broke and everything, because trying to get all that plexi. But there's a way of pulling off the plexi paper to make your life easier without getting fingerprints all over and stuff. So we'll go over that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go in the garage. I'm going to get all my parts here on the floor. I'm going to try to set up the camera as best as possible. We'll go over all the screws and everything first, and we'll start framing it out and we'll start putting it together. If the plexiglass is like, if you have the paper already pulled off, like say you have somebody in the house that could be pulling off the paper for you while you're building it, they go really fast. If you're the type of person like me where I'm just doing it by myself, literally I'm sitting there watching something on YouTube while I'm pulling the plexiglass paper off, while the frame is everything is done in probably like a half hour, but the plexiglass stuff, it's just funny how this works. So let me go get everything set up. We're going to start going over everything. I'm going to try to give you as much detail as possible, try to walk you through it, and I feel that once you get like one done and then you build a second one, the rest are easy. The only one that was complex and the one I did first was the Max 140. The reason why is because this one actually has a couple extra frames in it, so it was a little bit more tricky. But if you're just doing the basic box stuff where you don't have the extra frames, it's fairly easy. So I just want to let you guys, don't be scared of these. They're not that complex once you get used to it. But I'm going to try to walk you through all that as best as I can throughout this video. So let's go get everything set up on the floor, and we'll start going through all the parts, and then we'll start building up. Okay, so I got a lot of my parts all over the floor. I have stuff leaning against the wall, so everything is not what you see in the camera right now. These are just kind of the frames and stuff right now. You do come with a piece of paper. It also comes with a black bag. The black bag's got all your tools in there that you will need to put this together. You really don't need a drill. You don't need a screwdriver. The only reason why I got the X-Acto blade is to cut up the black bag. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up the black bag first. We'll go through that stuff right now. If you're worried about directions, you take that Moducase piece of paper there, you scan it with your phone or iPad or whatever, and it'll take you to the site for all your build-ups and videos if you want to go that route. So you do have everything in the box you need. It's just a matter of taking your time putting it together, and then you have a great display case. So we're going to get a little bit closer. We're going to cut open the black bag. I'm going to go through the tools and all the parts, and then after that we're going to start building off of this frame. Now I'll explain that in a second. So let's go over your parts first. Alright, so here's your bag. Like I said, everything is pretty much in here. Just use scissors, X-Acto blade, whatever you need, and open all this stuff. Okay? Everything is here. Alright, so right away you have a cloth for your, you know, your cases to wipe it all off. I'm not really sure. As far as I know, with plexiglass stuff is you can't really spray a lot of like chemicals on there. You got to use like plexiglass cleaner or just wipes. So that's something I got to look into down the line. This right here is your go-to tool. Now, this is for your wrench for, you know, screwing everything in. If you get a couple Moducases, you're going to pretty much get the same bag of all these tools in here. So if you have 2 or 3 of these, it's actually better to help you build this up, and I'll show you that later. When I first did my first one, I wish I opened up my other boxes so I could be like tying 2 down at the same time. But we'll go through that later. So right here is all the parts that you kind of need. There's some stuff in here I'm not quite sure. But for right now, this right here is very important, this little screw piece. This is for the top of your plexiglass in the front. We'll go over that later. These right here are for adding, stacking pieces on top. You don't need those yet either. This right here is another wrench tool for the smaller pieces. That goes with those. Right here is actually for the bottom of your case. You put these are like the feet. So if you put these feet at the bottom, it won't scratch up your floors or your carpet because of the metal grabbing. So those are important. These right here, these little tiny screw pieces actually go with these rods there. These pieces right here, I'm not really sure what these are. It looks like connector pieces and stuff, so I'm going to have to look onto those. So I don't know all these parts yet. I think these are to hook on other pieces together. I'm pretty sure that maybe these go with those. I'm not sure. But the majority of the stuff that we need, these right here, are more screws. This right here is pretty much what you need. These 2 bags right here. These are your screws. We'll open this up. Basically, all these screws is what's going to be putting this together. So those are what you need there. And these are washers. These are kind of like crush washers. These actually help lock these in place, and I don't know if some people bother using these, but I use these because I'm also thinking of, like, you know, when you like change your oil pan and you take your you know, your screw out of the oil pan and then you drain your oil. You use some oil pans, you have to use a crush washer. So these are kind of like what I'm thinking crush washers are used for. So that's pretty much it in the bag. It's really not that complex. I'm pretty sure all this stuff over here is for when you start attaching it to other builds and you kind of want to make one big unit. So I haven't gotten that far yet with my build. Right now we're just kind of building up the frame and everything. So let me get organized again, and we're going to start talking about the frame and how to put it together. And then from there we'll start putting all this stuff together. Okay, so here is the frame. Now, what they do is they give you all these parts over here. See all those little frame parts to build the back of the frame. But this is the front of the frame. And I think the reason why, this is my guess, the reason why they give you the front of the frame already built is because what they did is they added all the magnets onto your plexiglass, and they added all the magnets here so everything lines up correctly. Because if they gave you the frame that wasn't together correctly, and then you tried to line all this up, you might not get your plexiglass magnetized correctly, as you can see. I'm probably putting the magnets on, I'm probably putting the sheet on backwards. Maybe it goes this way. Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay. So basically your black tape goes in front like so, and it locks into place. Now, there's a little hole up top over here. This little hole is actually the top of your case. This is what goes upright. That little tiny screw that I talked about goes right in there. That's kind of just like a safety screw. Even though your plexiglass stays on with the magnets, it's good to not lose that screw. This way everything stays on place. So the way we're building this up, this is the top end, and that's the bottom over here. So what we'll do is we'll scroll out a little bit. We'll take off the plexiglass. We don't need this till the end of the build. So take this away, put it somewhere safe so it doesn't get bent up or scratched, and we'll put it against the wall. So, okay. So now that I know where the top of my frame is, which is that screw there, we're going to take the frame and we're going to flip it like so. Okay. So there we go. We're going to build off this frame. Now, on the directions, the way they build it is they build the back of the frame and then you add this to the top of it afterwards. I'm going to build off of the frame here because I feel like it's already built and it's easier. There's only one tricky part at the end We'll go over that later when we had to add the last frame part, when you already have the cardboard in here, but we'll kind of go over that later. So right now, what we need to do is we need to get our basic 4 frames. So these right here is your side frame, top, bottom bar. So these are basically your 4 parts. Hopefully you got this in the camera. This is like your 4 pieces. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to rip this open. I'm going to start adding the screws. I'm going to show you guys how we start adding the screws and putting this together. Alright, so we'll kind of go over the screw parts. So let's make sure I get this all in the camera. So these are your frames. So what it is these tools are actually screwing through the frame, and we'll show you that in a second. So what I like to do is you take your crush washers, right? You got a lot of them, so don't worry about it. And basically, you take a washer, you take your screw, and you put it through, and then you have the little pieces here, and you just kind of screw these in for now, okay? Kind of just go around and screw those in. If for some odd reason you're trying to put in the screw and it's not going in right, or maybe you feel like it's too tight, they didn't go in nice and smooth the way I did it, you got plenty of extras in here. So I haven't really run into that problem. One I did on one build, so what I did is I just took the screw, I put it aside, and I used one of the other ones and everything was working fine. Now, the reason why I put the crush washer in there is because you want the crush washer to be up across there when you start putting in your frame, and we'll go over that right now. Now the other thing too is, don't get paranoid if you start getting any kind of like oils or residue on your fingers, because you will start to get a little bit of greasy type stuff on your hands. When you're ready to work on the plexiglass, wash your hands, get them clean, and then start work on the plexi. You don't want to get all this onto the plexi. So when you're handling these frames, you might get a little bit of that stuff, especially the screws, because usually screws and stuff are always packed with some kind of oil or grease. The other thing too is have a vacuum next to you. Try to do this maybe on a floor where if you have any kind of little bit of metal shavings, I did find some metal shavings in the one box. So when I did it on the carpet, they kind of stuck to it. So if you have like a nice floor like this, you know, like a basic wooden floor or tiles or something, do that. Also be very careful though when you start moving this stuff around. You do have sharp edges, so you can scratch your floor. So if you have a really good durable floor, if you want, put a towel down or cardboard or something. So that's kind of just some little tidbits. So I'm going to get this kind of turned on its side a bit, and I'm going to show you how we start to add the framing to it. So that right up there is the top frame, so we're going to add 2 bars up there first, and then we're going to start putting on to the next parts. Okay, so this is the top corner, right? You can see that there's a hole here going to. Now make sure this side is where all the magnets are, and this is your frame, okay? So the crush washer, you need to have it all the way up top when you screw this in. So we can get this a little bit tighter, like so. You want the crush washer to be there, okay? So when you slide this into this piece here, the crush washer is inside that hole, okay? Now if you put it at the bottom and then you screw the screw like that, what happens is you're not getting frame touching frame. You want the frame to touch it. So you always want to have that crush washer in there like so. Now there's a hole here that goes through this piece, and what you want to do is you want to catch it and you want to start twisting it. And then what you do is that crush washer, you want to make sure you put your finger here, get this frame nice and even like so, and then you tighten this. So that crush washer is there for a reason, so this way you kind of don't screw up the screw and it kind of locks it into place. Like I said, think of like, you know, cars. Like when you change your oil, you need to have that crush washer. Now, that's the only reason why I figured they put these in here, because I'm also looking inside the frame that they already built in. They did the same exact thing with the screw that's over here. So it's the same exact idea. So those crush washers are very important. So now we have this one frame set up, and we're ready to go. So I'm going to go put the head and put the other frame on, and then we're going to start adding the pieces onto it. Okay, so what's going to happen is you're going to have a plexiglass that goes along this side, and you're going to have a plexiglass that goes along that side. Now, there is notches already in here, but the problem is when you put the plexiglass in there, it would flop and go all over the place. So these are like channels for your plexiglass, right? So you want to make sure these channels go in pretty well. So what you do is you line up this channel first. You just put it right here. Now, you want to make sure your channel is not blocking the hole. I'm not sure if you guys can see this, but there's a hole over here for your next rod. So you want to make sure you put your channel all the way at the edge. So let's zoom in a little bit more. Wish I had somebody else helping me film this, but that's okay. We'll get it to work. So you can kind of see over here, there's a channel, okay? So this piece right here goes like in there. Now, you can push this in yourself with your hand, but it is a little bit tricky. So make sure your piece goes all the way there. If you have a screwdriver or you have one of these pieces, this will make your life easier where you can just kind of put this in and push it in like so. And then you just go down the line and you push it in, okay? It's pretty straightforward. You know, just be careful you don't like slip and cut yourself. You know, like I said, you can use a screwdriver and you could go in there. It's too hard to do it with your hands unless you feel more comfortable that way. But this way it kind of goes in. So you kind of go down the line on that. Now, you do have the shorter ones, right? The shorter ones go onto this piece over here, okay? So let's get this piece shown. Alright, so this piece over here, you want to make sure that this isn't sticking up. You know, you want to make sure this is kind of even at the bottom and top. So take your piece, go like this. If you feel you're more comfortable putting this piece in first before you attach it to the frame, you can do that. But as long as you hold it and just sort of push this plastic piece in, it works. So you just go down the line and you push this in. Now the problem is if you have one piece sort of sticking out and it's not even going down when you put in your plexiglass, it becomes a pain. So you just want to make sure you go down the line and do this. So I'm going to go ahead and get the plastic in this side. I'm going to get it in the other side. And then from there, the next step will be the plexiglass, which is kind of a pain. So let me get all this channeling in and we'll go from there. Alright, so I got all the channel in on this side, that side, and those two bars. Now, these are the two bars that are going on the bottom here. And then these two bars, these two channels are going on the top part. So right now, these two channels we'll put aside. And then we have these here. Now, I find it's a little bit easier to put these channels in right now than to try to do it when the plexiglass is in. 'Cause there's two ways of doing it. You can have your frames up and you can slide the plexiglass down, or you could put the plexiglass in on this piece first and then slide this channel in and go from there. So there's two ways of doing it, whatever you feel comfortable with. So for right now, what we'll do is we're going to put this channel in and just get it over with. Alright, so make sure you line it up nice and even and put this in. So grab your spackle, screwdriver. Just make sure you don't damage this. You know, don't throw a huge screwdriver in there and chop it all up. Just kind of, it just goes and clicks right in. Alright? Then you grab your crush washer, and what we'll do is we'll put this piece in here like so. Now I did look a little bit closer on the frame they built, and they used actually like maybe 2 crush washers on there. You can, I guess, if you want to, but I find that 1 is probably enough. Okay. So like I said, this one's a little bit tougher. It's because I put it at an angle, but we're going in there. Now, when you go to put this one in there, make sure you put it where you put that channel in. Because if you put your channel in the wrong way, you know, you just got to make sure you slide this in and it's at the correct channel. Like I said, so you can put this one in. Make sure we're kind of in the frame. Yeah. So you can put this one in, and then you can slide your plexiglass into here. Or what you can do is you can put your plexiglass in here first, and then you can slide this into the plexiglass and then lock it into place. I find it's a little bit easier to get this piece in here, because what happens is when you get the plexiglass in here, and then if you need to turn this upside down to get this piece in, it's kind of a little bit tricky. Your plexiglass might pop out on you. So I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to put these two rods in, and then we're going to slide the plexiglass down. And I'm going to show you how I pull up the sticker stuff off the plexiglass to kind of help you lock it into place. So let me get these two rods in, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how you take the plastic off, but in a way where it actually helps you move the plexi, and then we're going to get it into the frame. We're pretty much almost done. Like literally, if somebody was already doing that plexiglass stuff for you, you could put this in, pop this in, put the other two on, and screw it all together, and you're done. But like I said, I'm one person, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you what I'm going to do, but then I'm going to stop the camera, I'm going to watch some YouTube while I'm pulling this stuff apart, and then we'll come back when I'm done. So this is what takes up the most time. So like I said, it goes pretty fast, but let me get these two pieces in, and then I'll show you the next step. Alright, so you have your two side panels, and it's pretty straightforward. You just got to pull this stuff off. Now, like I said, I'm actually going to sit down, I'm going to pop on a YouTube video, and I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to slowly start taking off this stuff. Now, I'm doing it with my fingernail. I suggest not using any tools because you don't want to scratch any of the plexiglass. So if you have fingernails, use them and go from there. Now, it's going to be kind of hard, but so you see how sometimes it rips on you, and you got to pull you got to pull it off. Maybe somebody's got a better way. I don't really know, but this is the tedious thing. See, the reason is what happens is this stuff comes off fairly easy if you have a good straight edge from the factory. But with them cutting sheets down, what happens is when you slice it, the paper sort of kind of gets stuck in the grooves of the area. So when you start pulling this off, it becomes a pain. So, and the reason why I destroy my fingernails is because I'm hitting that edge all the time. Like I said, I don't want to use any tools because I don't want to scratch any of this plexiglass. So just get comfortable, sit here, and go. Now, the reason why I'm going over the edging is because what I want to do is I want to roll this on its edge. I want to keep rolling this on its edge. Because you don't want to put this plexiglass with this paper into the grooves, because then when you got to try to pull off the paper later, it's stuck in the grooves and you don't want to get it all nasty. So just sit here and kind of pull all this down. So I'm going to go on each side on both plexis and just do this. And I'm going to roll it and I'm going to have it on an edge like that. So what it is I don't want all this to be touching with my hands. I just want this to go into the grooves, and then later I can pull all this off. So this right now is the longest part of all this if you're doing it by yourself. So I suggest pop on a movie, hit like Transformers movie, the old cartoon, do something, and just sit down and just take your time and do this. And then this is the tease. Now this right here is actually being a little bit more of a pain than the other ones. The other ones, like I was able to pull like a big chunk off. So it might be this side. So if we go over to this side, maybe this side's a little bit better. Not really sure. All depends. So yeah, so this side, so yeah, that's going a little bit better. And then what you do is you just kind of roll it, let it stick, and then have this edge showing. And I'm going to do that on both of these pieces. And then once these pieces are done, ready to go, we slide them in and finish it off. Like I said, the framing and everything goes fast. This is the stuff that takes the time. But you want your pieces to look good and you want it to be nice and clear, so to go with it. But I'm going to stop the camera, I'm going to watch the show, and we'll come back and we'll start adding and finishing this up. Alright, so as you can see, I went ahead and I got all the plexiglass and I wrapped it around the edges. And the reason why I do this is it makes life a little bit easier with putting this in, and I'm going to show you why. Doesn't really matter which way you do it, as far as, you know, like which side of the plexiglass. So what you want to do is you want to sort of put it into the channel. Now you could slide it in, but I find it's better just to kind of bend it a little bit. You don't bend it to like snap it, but just bend it a little bit to get into the channel. Alright? Like I said, these longer ones are kind of a pain. stuff out. Just kind of bend this up. Get it in the channel. Like I said, you can do it the other way where you put this in first. But what happens is if you put this in first and you try to get this bar over here, it kind of like wobbles on you because it's longer. The shorter ones probably can work better. So now that this is in here, the reason why this plexiglass, you do this paper, is because you can use the paper to sort of pull the plexiglass into the channel at the bottom. And you kind of line it up. And then what you do is you sort of push this down a little bit. Kind of, don't put all your weight onto this and like smash it, but just get it into the channel. Now you want to make sure it's in the channel. If you have any issues where it's not going in the channel, and you have your spackle, spackle or something, don't jam this in, but sort of kind of help you sort of kind of get into the channel a bit. Because sometimes the one I did do, it wasn't going in correctly. Because sometimes they just kind of don't fit too well. But if you sort of kind of get it in there, it works pretty well. Okay? So that's that. So that's that one. So the next step is you could do the other side as well. So let me try to think of which kind of better. So I'll probably go up with the top corner, and then we'll put in the other plexiglass and go from there. So let me just get organized so I can see the camera, to get you guys set up for the camera as well, and then we'll start putting on the other pieces. But like I said, that plexiglass stuff, taking off that paper, I would say it took me a good half hour to do both of them. It's just, you can see the ripping. Sometimes you get a nice long one going, and sometimes you get rips and stuff. So just leave it like that. That'll help protect it. It'll help from fingerprints. And then once you get it all together, you can start peeling it all down. Okay, so these are your side frame back bars. These are the long ones that are going to go up to here. So what we'll do is we'll rip this, we'll pop these out. There's only 2 of them. You just have to make sure you put it in the right way. So just kind of take off all this plastic stuff. So I'm trying to give you guys like real time on how this stuff works. It's a little bit tedious at times, but it's not that hard. Okay, now you have 2 of them. You have to make sure each one. So there's a hole here. So you can see there's a hole right here. This goes up. When you put this piece on here, it goes upwards. Now, before we put this in though, you have to turn this upside down, make sure this hole is at the bottom, right? Turn that upside down there, and you got to put your channel in. Got to make sure you put your channel in. Now, this channel is a little bit trickier now because you can't line this up wrong. You want to get this correct. So we'll put this down here like so, and you get your channel. Now you got to kind of eyeball this, and so far I haven't had that much of an issue. Just sort of eyeball it. There's 2 holes here too as well. So you have a hole up here, which has got to step up, and then you have a hole going through there. That's important. You can't block this hole. So take your channel and eyeball it the best you can. So what you do is you take this piece, you put it in here. Do this so you guys can see what I'm doing. Okay, get your spackle tool, your screwdriver, whatever works. Alright, so we're gonna go down here and we'll kind of get the camera down there as close as possible. Okay, so you want to eyeball this. You want to sort of line this up to the point where it's not really hitting the hole, but it's also not hitting this one either. So you have sort of kind of make sure both fingers are on it and go from there. Now you go from the middle of this, push this in and go down. So always make sure you're doing this the right way. If for some odd reason you put this in the wrong way, you can pop it out and it's not the end of the world. So just kind of go down and get all this in. So let me go ahead, get this channel in on both of these, and we go from there. Alright, So now we start venturing into a little bit of the tricky part. If you have somebody else helping you, you know, maybe you can have someone lift it up a little bit, you know, put it on its side. Whatever you need to do, it works. So since I'm doing this by myself, kind of show you the next step. So now what we have to do is we have to put our screws in with the crush washer on these pieces, because everything sort of slides together. So grab yourself another screw, crush washer, and put it into this piece here, like so. Now, this is the tricky part. Since we're facing gravity, these crush washers like to fall down on you, so they're kind of a pain, but it'll work out in the end. So, I'm going to do the other one on the other side right now. You don't need to roll, don't put these all the way down. Leave them up high like this. It'll make life a little bit easier, right? Okay? So, what we also have to do next too is put our top panel on. So like I said, this piece is the top over here. This is the top. That's the bottom. So your top panel, which you find in your parts, it says top panel, right? So we have our top panel. Now the only problem with the top panel stuff is I wish they put the sticker on the other white side, because it's the black side that's going to go in. So be very careful when pulling off your sticker. If your sticker is kind of like, go slow, pull this off. You don't want to rip any of that black plastic there. So that's just one little small thing is I wish they put it on the white side, because the white side is not what you're going to see. Take that sticker, throw it away, and then we have to do our panel correctly. So the notches that are longer than the shorter notches are the ones that are coming up on this side. So take your back panel, your top panel, with the black part facing inwards, and slide that down. So that goes like that, okay? Now, this part is the little trickier part. So we're going to slide our piece in. Now, like I said, this is tricky. This is where you might want to use a screwdriver, and this is where the two screw pieces that come with the item work together. So, over here, grab your rod, your piece. Now, like I said, the hole that's here has to come up here, alright? So, this is going to go on like this and slide inwards. So have it over here, and this is kind of the that's also why you keep your paper on there in case you stop. So get your screwdriver, bring your crush washer up as high as you can, and take your piece, like I said, make sure that hole is kind of upwards, and slide this into here like so. Now if you're not careful and you slide it in wrong, what happens is your crush washer might be at an angle. Like half of it might be in and half of it might be out. Okay? Now, the problem is you got to fight with the other side. Okay? So I'm leaving that like right now. Double check, make sure I'm looking good. So this is why it's good to have two people helping you out. One person could be on one side, the other person could. The smaller ones are a little bit easier, you know? Alright, so over here, what we do is we grab this crush washer, we lift this up, we sort of make sure, sometimes you got to bend this a little bit, right? Get this crush washer up. It's important to get that in there, okay? Make sure you slide it, kind of push it in, and boom, okay. Now you gotta be really careful with these right now, okay? Let's zoom out. Now, the reason why I put the top board in is because that piece is going to lock that top board in. You can see the corner, it's gonna lock it in, alright? So now, what we do is we grab our two pieces, and this is kind of where it's a little bit tricky, and this is kind of where that tape, well, the stickiness comes into effect. So put your screw through the hole here, try to lock up your screw. Okay, we got that going. Use your other tool, come over here, try to lock this one in as well, okay? And then what you do is you sort of turn both of them coming down. Hopefully I'm on this one correctly. Yeah, I am. Just go slow, okay? So you keep going down slow. Don't try to jam it in right away. And what you want to do is you want to start lining up your plexi into that notch as it's going down. So try to make sure you're doing it correctly. Get it in there. Make sure you feel if you have to look underneath. And you want to go evenly too. You want to kind of go with both pieces going down. See how that kind of like locked in. Double check your pieces. Make sure we're locking in nice and tight. Make sure it's not flipping out anywhere. Excuse me. And go down. And you start hearing it squeak a little bit. So now we know we're locking into place pretty well. Okay. You hear that little squeaking? It's kind of pushing everything together. Okay. There we go. That kind of locked in pretty well. Make sure, double check. Double check while you're doing it. If you have to look underneath while you're doing this, do it, because you don't want to push this down and it's not going in that channel and you crack it, or, you know, it's all about taking your time, making sure everything's lined up. Now, one of the other cases I was working on, what happened was this piece was bent in, like really bent in, because it wasn't really going into the channel a little bit. So what I had to do is I had to loosen it up, and I had to get that channel sort of like pushed in a little bit more, because what happened was one of the channels wasn't kind of in there, but that worked out pretty well. So make sure we're tight, and then we're good to go. So now we have our plexiglass that's in the channel. We're looking good. That's side one down, okay? So the next step is we have to do the same thing on the other side. So let me go ahead and get that done, and then we'll come back and we'll pretty much finishing it off. So you can kind of see it's just a little bit tricky over there. The hardest part after this is done is when we put the piece over on there, that bar. But let me go ahead and get this channel in and this plexiglass, and we'll go. Okay, so we're doing the same thing again now on the other side. So I figured I'd kind of show you guys again. So like I said, it's kind of tricky. This piece right here, try to get that washer to come up, the crush washer. Sometimes it works first try, and sometimes it. So you see that circle there? Make sure that circle on this bar is at the top. You don't want the down here, because you won't be able to put this bar in there, and we'll show you why. So make sure you slide this in. Slide it a little bit further than you need to. Have it hold down here. I'm gonna try to get the other one in. I know the camera's not there right now. It's a little bit. Sometimes what happens is the screw goes in there without the crush washer being up, and you gotta kind of pop it back out. It's a little bit tricky, but once you get used to it, it works pretty well. All right, so I got that in. All right, good. Now we do the same thing again, but on this side. Alright. So we grab our tools. Let's see, where's the other one? Alright, so we got this one here, and we got this one here. Okay. So what you do is you go down in there, make sure you got it, make sure it's twisting, looking pretty good. It's kind of good to lock them in place now, because if you try to screw one down, and you're not paying attention to the other one, the bar might pop out. So kind of do this again. Got your two rods going. Alright, so once we get a little bit closer, we got to get this plexiglass locked into place. Make sure you hold it. You never really want to put one down without the other one going down at the same time, because what happens is it gets tight, it just doesn't. You want to go evenly. So, got to make sure your plexiglass is locked in. Just keep going, a little bit at a time. So like I said, if you got someone helping you, you just keep going. Alright, let me double check underneath. Make sure the plexiglass is looking pretty good. We're in the channel. Start locking it down. Take your time. Don't rush this. Start hear it squeak a little bit. Sometimes it squeaks, sometimes it doesn't. That piece is down. Hear that? And we're locked. We're looking good. We're in the channel. It's not going out. It's not popping out. We look good. All right. So we got most of the frame done. We're at the home stretch. So the next step is the bar up top. Now this, I would say, is probably the trickiest part. So let me get the camera set up and I'll show you why. So this is your back frame, top and bottom. So this is the back of it, this is the top of my case, and then the other part behind me is the bottom. So this is the next two bars you need. So pop these bars out. Okay? So this is why these top holes were here, and we didn't, we made sure that those went in the right direction, because these pieces go like so. If I see where I'm going, so you can see that goes in there like that. So once again, we grab our screws and crush washers. Now this one, you gotta just be, you gotta finesse this one in a little bit. I understand that their directions on the site give you one way, but I felt this is kind of the better way. I honestly don't think there's really a wrong way of building these, as long as they're secured and they're done. So don't worry to yourself, it's like, oh my god, I didn't follow the directions, complete. As long as everything's locked into place, none of these crush washers are in correctly, the frame is holding, I think you're good to go. So, like I said, I might be doing this backwards to the videos, but so far I feel these are better. Now, we're going to put these crush washers in fairly far. You got to kind of feel it to the point. So you can't just put this in because you have this piece of wood here, right? So what I like to do is get these screws in, line this up, got to kind of go in a little bit further, almost to the point where they would lock into place. So put this piece in like so. Okay. And then we do this side as well, okay? Like I said, this kind of gets a little bit tricky, but it's doable. Alright, now, this is kind of where we do a little bit of a twist. So you see this piece of wood is stopping it? Turn your piece at an angle, right? It's like the hardest part, honestly. It's the crush washers that kind of cause the pain, they kind of slide down. But if you can get these into the rod correctly, don't worry about pushing the wood a little bit, okay? And then basically, you see what I'm doing is I'm sort of twisting it into the wood, and then I lock it into place, okay? Now you just want to double check your washers, make sure you're not like at an angle, make sure they're inside that channel, and we're locked into place. Now, it all depends on how far you put those little screws in to kind of twist that on, but once they're on, you take your tool again, find where your screw is, and we lock these into place. Okay? Fairly simple. Boom. That's locked into place. We go over to here, and we lock this one into place. Boom. Got it. Alright? So, that's that. Now, next step. I'm going to get my crush washers out of the way, get all my screws out of there, and we're going to finish up the rest of this. Fairly straightforward. Alright, so we're on the home stretch now. So what you want to do is you want to grab your back panel now, okay? So like I said, this is we're looking at the back of this. Now, you have your back panel, you don't put it on like this because when you turn it upside down, you're going to see the white area. So you want to flip this upside down. Now, you want to make sure you put this on correctly. And once again, we have a sticker on the black part. So like I said, I'm hoping maybe this will be something Moducase will change down the line. I always get worried about that little sticker ripping that off. Okay? So you can do this a couple different ways. If you want to turn this on its side, if you want to turn it upside down, you can. But if you're just careful, you'll be able to do this. Now, there's notches. See these big notches here, and then the small notches? You put the small notches going up as far as I can tell. So what we do is we go into this channel, back here, the higher channel, right? And we pretty much slide this in. Now you want to be careful. You don't want to scratch your back plate at all if you put it in wrong. But it should slide in just fine, okay? And then we want to make sure this goes into that channel up top. Alright, so we're good. Now, next step, and almost the final step. Okay? We have our last rod, which is at the bottom. And once again, this is the easiest probably one, except for the washers. You put that piece in here, like so. One side usually goes in pretty well, the other side's kind of a pain. We grab our screwdriver. So, you might not see it in the camera, I'm just trying to get the washer set up on the other piece. Like so. And that should slide in pretty well. You want to make sure the screws are in to the point where it makes life easier. So now that we're kind of getting closer to the edge, you want to make sure your screw goes in. A little bit tricky. There we go. Almost pinched myself there. Yeah, see, the washer stuff's always the tricky part. So I'll get it. A little bit of a... There we go. Cool. Alright, so we're in. Yeah, see, this piece is going in at an angle. There we go. There we go. Good. Alright, like I said, sometimes they go and it makes life easy, and other times it. So I'm tightening up the other side. Boom. And then on this side, we go ahead and we tighten this up. Make sure we're lining up pretty good. Nice and tight. Try not to over tighten, but make sure you do tighten. You don't want to strip your screws. That's one thing you definitely don't want to do. Okay. Last step as far as the frame goes. So get down here a little bit. So you can see we have our channels on there. So if you turn it upside down right now and you have carpet or you have a smooth floor like me, what will happen is you might start getting this digging in. So you get your feet here, and these are the longer ones, right? So you put your longer one in like so, and then you have your shorter ones, which is at the bottom down here, alright? So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to put those on there, we're going to flip it up, and then we'll finish this off. Alright, so at this point we flipped it upside down, we flipped it upright, everything's ready to go. So what I like to do is take out all the paper from inside. So here, should be a little bit easier, sometimes it's not. So go in here and take out all this paper. Sometimes it comes down easy, sometimes it doesn't. So I'm going to go in here, I'm going to take out all this paper. I'll probably take out some of the paper on the side. And we'll start, we'll put in the bottom frame, we'll put on the door, and you'll see how pretty much easy this is to put together. Okay, so we got the paper off. So next step is you take your bottom piece, right? So the longer notches, these longer notches are the ones that go in the back. So all you do is you take this piece, put it down like that, and then you gotta start cleaning up. Now, we're going to go back to the front of the plexiglass real quick. So we're going to get up here a little bit, go over here. So like I said, in the beginning, you got to make sure that this hole is at the top. So you always make sure that when you're building this piece right here is at top. You have all your magnets and you have all your stuff. So we get our plexiglass piece for the front. We make sure the hole is correct. Now, the reason why I'm not taking off the paper off this plexiglass first is because I still got to do the lighting, which I really don't know how to do too well, so I'm going to kind of keep this stuff on until I'm ready to start getting everything done. But you have your black frame, you take your plexiglass, you put this in, and you take this little notch. This is your safety screw, alright? You make sure that goes in there like so, screw that in, and then you are pretty much done. Now, one of the other things that's important, now you can see my setup, it's a little bit weird. The reason why my setup is like this is because I have a very small ceiling. And if you look up there, you have an angle on my ceiling coming down because I have a very small house. So I can't put the larger stuff on here. And then over here, I have my thermostat and all this other stuff. And I didn't want to move all that stuff because it would have been a nightmare because the above ceiling of this is very small. So this is kind of what I got. So I can't put anything on top of this piece, all right? If you put anything on top of here, this is not going to fall in. But I do have a piece of wood that I got from Ownage. Alright, so as I was saying, the top piece of this, you can't really put anything on top here because this will not hold anything. So I did order a piece of wood that goes on top of this. Now, I am not 100% sure on how to attach it, but we're going to pretty much get that on there like so. So now I can actually put stuff on top of there because of my weird setup in the house. So I'm going to look this over real quick and then we'll go from there.